I call the Honourable Louise Upston.
Mr Speaker, last week I was fortunate to visit the hut with Chris Bishop, our MP based there, and visited the children at Waterloo School. I was there in my capacity as the Minister for Land Information, awarding a prize for a student who had named one of Linds's drones. Now, who would have thought, Mr Speaker, that drones are an important part of educating our children? So these kids were part of a classroom. There were 96 classrooms who went on a virtual field trip to the Mackenzie country. So the amazing technology and advances in modern learning that this government is provided 96 classrooms from one end of New Zealand to the other to learn for a virtual field trip in Mackenzie country, a place that many of their parents would never have visited, Mr Speaker. So to have the opportunity to learn about issues that are challenging for this country, such as infestations of wilding pines, to learn about science and geography, important technologies like mapping, was absolutely fantastic. But Mr Speaker, it was interesting because these children live in quite a different world. And the winning name of the drone was Manu. And Manu in Te Reo means bird or kite. So they actually see technology as just an extension of the natural world that they are growing up in, and it's a natural extension of how they learn. And Mr Speaker, they can thank, and their parents can thank, this government, because this government, Budget 2015, will take a total spend on early childhood, primary and secondary education to $10.8 billion. Now, Mr Speaker, I've spoken on a number of occasions how my fundamental belief is that education is the passport to opportunities. So for children who participate in schools from one end of the country to the other, the best start that we can provide for them is an education. But more than that, Mr Speaker, $790 million has been provided for children and families in this budget. Now, it was priceless on budget day when our very fine Minister of Finance delivered the budget to just see the clear look of shock and horror on the opposition benches because they had not anticipated what for us was a very fundamental, logical, common sense delivery of a promise from our Prime Minister to govern for all New Zealanders and to look after those who had the most challenging of circumstances. So $790 million, Mr Speaker, and I want to echo the words of my colleague Simon O'Connor, who talked about care and compassion. This is a government, Mr Speaker, who has care and compassion for families and communities who put children at the heart of Budget 2015, and for that, Mr Speaker, I am enormously proud. But I want to come back to these students in Waterview School, because actually it's about ensuring that our young children, every single one of them, irrespective of their circumstances, their upbringing, every single child, Mr Speaker, we believe on this side of the House deserves a great education. And one of the things that we have put spending into in this budget is school infrastructure. So the modern learning environments that we walk into where, children at Waterloo School, they queue up outside the digital classroom at 8:30. They queue up, dying to get into the classroom so they can get in there at 8:30 and start learning, and the class doesn't even start until 9 o'clock. Now, that is exactly what we want for every one of our children, Mr Speaker, and it's just so incredibly inspiring. And when you look at teachers and principals in schools like that, when they have students who are just hungry for learning, queuing up at the door, I think is absolutely stunning. And that's what this government is providing through education funding, through funding for school infrastructure. But Mr Speaker, there's another really a critical part of that, and that's what we're funding in terms of ultra-fast broadband. So in terms of our Budget 2015, we've also set aside funding to deliver on our commitment to roll out world-class internet connectivity for New Zealanders with an extension to our flagship broadband initiatives. And Mr Speaker, I know years ago when we made this commitment about ultra-fast broadband and our rural broadband initiative, I think there were some that thought it was just kind of beyond actually what we'd be able to deliver. But Mr. Speaker, if you think about schools that are connected, homes that are connected, healthcare facilities, businesses that are connected, in my own electorate, Cambridge, Tokoroa and now Taupo are now fully fibred. You know, so if that side of the House talks about the fact that this government's not delivering for regions, well, I can tell you they are. They are delivering for regions in every part of the country. So if you look in Tokoroa in Decile 1 school, where every single child is able to access digital connectivity to learn in a pace that suits them, Mr. Speaker. So no longer do we have a scenario where a teacher is at the front of a classroom teaching to every child at one level. No, you can have children in that classroom who have a variety of learning challenges, who are able to learn at their pace, and as the very reason for that, they are not being excluded, they are not isolated, they are fully engaged in their learning, and more importantly, Mr. Speaker, their learning results and achievement is incredibly and significantly increasing, which is exactly what we want for every one of our students. So let's look at broadband, Mr. Speaker. So if we look at broadband in Taupo, well-known tourist spot, a significant part of our economy is around broadband rollout. And so what we want to do there is make sure that, because we actually launched the chorus rollout in a backpackers. So international visitors come into the backpackers. As we well know, Mr. Speaker, social media is just an integral part of a backpackers experience. So they are putting video, photos, images of Taupo, beaming it around the world. So if there was one simple way to promote our country, Mr. Speaker, actually connecting Taupo to ultra-fast broadband with Chorus picking Taupo as its first town in the North Island has been a pretty stunning result. So, Mr. Speaker, broadband clearly and our ultra-fast broadband rollout significantly benefits small business. Now, Mr. Speaker, I know that many of my colleagues here have been involved in businesses in a variety of ways, and that's why we understand small business. We understand that the issues that they face. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to give you one example, one very small example, and a great piece of work by my colleague, the Honourable Paul Goldsmith. So this budget gave $12 million to the New Zealand business number. So we've just introduced this legislation. Mr. Speaker, it's a really fundamental way of simplifying, getting rid of some of the duplication and paperwork and pain and suffering that small businesses have to undertake that we've been able to remove. So I'm very proud to say that the Minister sitting beside me was instrumental in getting that piece of work concluded. So Speaker opposite is saying, what about women? Well, absolutely, women. For many women, they are at the heart of the families who will benefit very directly from $790 million that have gone to families. It's fantastic, and Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to say there was no change in the Ministry for Women's budget. What we are doing is looking at no cuts at all, Sue Moroney. Don't tell lies in the House. No cuts whatsoever. Mr. Speaker, starting a family.
Point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I take offence to that, and I'm happy to table the page in the budget that.
Order. That's not a point of order. Now, the point of order was the offence was a Speaker's ruling 42-2, and I'll just ask the member to be mindful of that one. The Honourable Louise Upson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Sue Moroney.
Mr. Speaker, I informed you that I took offence, and I wish to see an apology, please. That's the normal course of action when a member takes offence.
Order. The offence was in relation to what?
Me to reply?
I'm asking you what the offence was that you've taken exception to.
She said that I lied.
Well, that's right, and I've told her under 42. That's why I quoted it. I quoted 42 that she's not allowed to do that. So that's why I quoted standing orders. The Honourable Sue Moroney. The Honourable Louise Upson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So one of the significant pieces of work that I'm progressing, Mr. Speaker, is at the heart of this budget. The heart of this budget is around children and families. And so it's fantastic that we have increased paid parental leave, The next piece of work for me is looking at how we can work with small businesses that are a heart of this country, and looking at how they can be more flexible in having women in their workplaces, making sure that women's skills are fully utilised in part-time environments. And I'm very proud of the flexible work requests that we brought into this House. It came into force on the 6th of March, Mr Speaker. Now, we didn't hear the opposition talk about that because they know that piece of legislation alone is significant for women. Mr Speaker, this budget is a great budget. It, as I said, in terms of education, that is the significant opportunity for every young New Zealander to do well. And this is a government that is investing in them. It's investing in their very early days. It's helping individuals, it's helping families and children. This is a caring, compassionate government that is delivering for each and every New Zealander.
The Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Talo Falava Malo.